Welcome to another Stamp with Amy K YouTube Live, and today I'm going to show you how I made another fun project with another upcoming item from the Stampin' Up! Online exclusives. So these are products that are only available in the online store, so they're not in any catalog, not tied to any catalog, so they are available. They'll be available to order for customers beginning on July 3rd is when customers are able to start ordering them. Demonstrators actually, sorry, I'm going to scoot my camera around just a little bit here. Demonstrators are able to actually pre-order them right now. And so we were able to get our hands on these a little early. So if you are not currently a demonstrator, but are interested in getting your hands on some goodies early, let me know. And we can get you signed up, get your starter kit purchased and all that good stuff. I'm always happy to have more people come hang out on the team with us. So you can get this stuff, you can add it to your starter kit, you can actually purchase whatever you want in your starter kit, and then order these things later as well, because there's lots of other good online exclusives that'll be coming up on the 3rd of June that we can pre-order now as demonstrators. So I see everybody's rolling in. Hi, Heather and Sally and Dancine and Pam and Robin and Mary Ruth. So thanks everybody for joining today. I appreciate you being here. So this is the card we're going to be making, and I played a little bit with just the stamps and dies, a little bit with the embossing folder. You can see that back here and on this one. And again, just a couple of them were just cut with the dies. So lots of fun things in this awesome new stamp set bundle. So hey, Sylvia and Kathy and Roxanne and Heather, thanks for joining. So, oh, Heather's joining from the UK. Awesome. So hopefully, yeah, I'm assuming you guys also have these available to purchase over in the UK as part of the demonstrator pre-order, because they're pretty awesome. So, all right, this stamp set is called Changing Leaves, and it is a photopolymer stamp set. I got some nice sentiments in it. Got some beautiful leaves in it. So yeah, it's a good one. And yeah, and then it's got the coordinating dies. So this is actually one large die, and I'll show you why that is in just a second. But it does cut out the stamped images individually. And then there are a couple of kind of stitched looking dies that you can cut out your sentiments with. And it fits, I think all the sentiments in here will fit in one of the dies. I haven't actually cut them all out, but I'm pretty sure that they are actually, they'll all cut out. You'll be able to stamp and cut out the sentiments is what I'm trying to say with any of these dies. And then there's some nice accessory dies. So this one is just going to be some little solid leaves. These are kind of the detailed leaf veins that it will cut. And then this one is the little piece that I used to cut kind of these little twiggy looking things that are on my card front. So with this embossing folder, when you order the bundle or the hybrid embossing folder, so the hybrid embossing folders can consider the embossing folder and the dies together. So they always come together when it's a hybrid. When you bundle it, you get all three items. So the embossing folder, hopefully you can see it on here, is really pretty. And again, it's just pretty leaves. So you can use the embossing folder all by itself. It's one of the 3D embossing folders, so it is a little bit thicker, and you'll need that specialty plate to emboss with it. Well, if you want consistent embossing, you'll need the specialty plate. You can do it with shims and stuff, but it's kind of a pain. So then this die actually, and we're going to be playing with this a little bit later on, actually fits inside this embossing folder. So, there we go. You have to just kind of fit it. There's a little groove that it will fit into, and it won't snap in place, but you definitely know when it's in the right place because you can't wiggle it around anymore. So when you use these two together, it will actually cut and emboss at the same time. And again, I'll be showing you how to do that a little bit later on in this video. So again, it's a great bundle. And if you have the opportunity to order it, definitely go ahead and order it. Again, it's on the demonstrator pre-order now. So you can get it in a starter kit if you're not currently a demonstrator, or you can order it beginning on July 3rd. Again, these are what's considered online exclusives. And I realized, see, this is what happens when I get prepared all early. The specialty plate is not here with all of my cutting stuff because, yeah, of course I didn't need that. So 1 second, I'll be right back. Thankfully, it was not far away. So yes, so this is the specialty plate that you'll need for using your 3D embossing folders. And goodness, I can't believe I almost forgot that. All right, so let's get that out of the way. A couple things to talk about before we get going. Stampin' Up! Does have their 10% off all bundles that are currently available, including some of the online exclusives, however, not the upcoming ones, so you don't get the additional 10% off on those. It's anything that's currently available out in the online store for everybody. 10% off, additional off bundles, because normally bundles are 10% off. There's a sale going on through the end of June where you get an additional 10% off bundles, as well as 10% off of the die cutting machine. So that's the regular Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, which is the big one, or the mini machine, which is obviously the smaller version of it. So it's a great deal. I know there are a couple, I think there are 2 or maybe 3 of the bundles right now that are on back order and can't be added to an order, but a bunch of dies just restocked. So there were some that were unavailable that are now available. So go take a peek at the online store if you've been waiting. A couple of the bundles have returned. So online exclusives. So speaking of that, here are a couple of additional online exclusives that are available now again for demonstrators to pre-order, or will be coming for customers to order beginning on July 3rd. So again, this is just, there's a lot of holiday related stuff in there. There's some Halloween, obviously fall with this changing leaf stamp set. So this is one set of things. And then this is another set of items that are going to be available for customers to order beginning on the 3rd of July. And again, this is not everything. This is just a sampling of it. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming. So, and it's a great time to be a demonstrator because, yeah, you get the additional discount, your demonstrator discount on top of all the sale prices. And you get it on the new goodies too. So, all right. So let's get going on the card. This is Country Woods Designer Series paper, which is from the annual catalog. So the flip side is that real dark wood grain, and which would probably also be really nice behind my die cut images, but I went with the lighter version of it. And then I've got basic gray cardstock. So the Designer Series paper is cut to about 3 7/8 inches by about 5 1/8, and the basic gray layer is cut to about 4 by 5 1/4. So I see a few people have hopped in. So Roxanne and Verna and Heather and Karen and Daryl and Carol and Barbara, everybody, thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. It was kind of a nice, a little overcast day here in New Jersey, but now all of a sudden I looked out and it's raining. So there, I guess it's going to rain. So I didn't think it was supposed to rain this weekend. I know we're supposed to get really hot, like all of a sudden up into the mid to upper 90s for next week, early next week. So yay for that. Not really. All right. Using some Stampin' Dimensionals to adhere the little layered piece of cardstock and Designer Series paper to my card front. And I have got a crumb cake card base. So this one is cut to 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4 right down the middle of it. And we're going to stick these two together. And I know some of you in the U.S. have already had this heat wave kind of come through. So I know you're dealing with it right now, but we get to start next week. Yay. All right. So my original card base is cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5.5. So it is a top fold card. But this is one of those cards that will work with either card base. So I usually try to remember to show you that it does that. If you prefer the side fold cards, this one will work. I prefer the top fold cards, so that's why I do them that way. So. All right, let's do a little stamping here. And let me get my pieces of cardstock. I actually didn't do any of this ahead of time because I wanted to show you how the embossing folder worked. So I've got garden green ink, and in the center is garden green cardstock. And we are just going to ink up this big, enormous leaf with garden green ink, and we're going to stamp it on garden green cardstock. And I have the big, ginormous block on here. One of my team members told me that she was able to squeeze it on the kind of the next smaller block down, but I felt like it was hanging off the edges, so I didn't want to do that. I guess apparently it will fit on this block. So if you really dislike the large block, it'll fit on this one, but you kind of have to be careful because it'll hang off the edges a little bit. All right, let me close up my garden green ink before I stick my fingers or something else in it. Then I have got the kind of medium-sized leaf. Well, although it's not really, I don't know, slightly larger than the smaller leaf. So we've got Granny Apple Green ink. So hey, Michelle, thanks for hopping in. And we're just going to ink it up with Granny Apple Green ink Get that one out of the way, and we're going to stamp it on Granny Apple Green cardstock. All right, and there we go. And then the final leaf we're going to stamp in Lemon Lime Twist ink on Lemon Lime Twist cardstock. And you'll see that I'm using kind of smaller pieces of cardstock. And again, I'll show you why that is in just a second when I start doing the die cutting with these. Close this ink pad up. And then I'm going to grab my set of dies. And this is the large die that will cut all of these leaves out. So I'm going to have to run this through probably 3 times because they're close enough together in the die that I won't be able to very nicely be able to cut out these because they're going to overlap. So it is going to take me just a second to get these die cut. So I'm going to take the larger leaf first, and we're going to die cut that. When I initially was making this card, I will tell you that I struggled a little bit with the bottom of the leaf. I couldn't get the stem to line up right, so I finally pulled it all off the block, dropped it face down on my grid paper again, and then used the block to pick it up, and then I got it lined up correctly. So if you have trouble with this not fitting right in the die, just know that it's because the photopolymer stamp sets are easy to move around. It's easy to accidentally stick on in a not straight place that doesn't coordinate with your die, as I did earlier. So just do that trick. Usually that will work. Drop it face down on your grid paper and then pick it up with the block, and then you usually get it perfectly aligned every time. And then if you really get desperate, the other thing you can do, I'll show you. Sometimes if I really am struggling with it, I will actually, although it's got ink on it, so I almost hate to do it, but I will actually put it on the block and then put my die over the top of it and then move the end of it around so that it fits inside the die. So that's another way to double check that it's in the right spot and if you're struggling to get it to line up. So, all right, let me go die cut this now that I'm still yakking. And there's the larger one. And again, I'm just using the die to cut this. I'm not using the embossing folder on it yet. So this one we're going to line up in this little die, and I'm going to run that through. So I'll be right back. Here's that one, and then my final leaf we're going to die cut with this little die. Almost lined up. All right, so I'm going to bring my cutting plates over to remind you of one other thing. When you're cutting with a large die like this, be really careful to make sure that your die is actually fully on your plate before you run it through the die cutting machine. Again, ask me how I know, because I've destroyed dies before. If it is hanging over the edge, just a hair even, it will actually catch the edge of your die cutting machine, and it folds those dies quite nicely, bends them right around the edge of your cutting plate, and then your die does not work very well anymore. Again, ask me how I know, because I've done all the things and had to buy a new set of dies. So just be careful when you're die cutting with the large die, especially when you're trying to maneuver it around and cut only a small piece of paper with it. That's when I usually find myself going, oh, that's hanging off the edge of the die, or hanging off the edge of the plate, and I don't want that to happen. So, all right, let me get this mess out of the way. All right, all the extra pieces here. Almost took that with me. All right, now we're going to actually play with the hybrid embossing folder. So I need to swap around my plates. When you use the hybrid embossing folders, it's actually just like cutting with the 3D embossing folders, or just like embossing, I should say, with the 3D embossing folders. So you're going to use your base plate, which on the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine is plate number 1. There are other die cutting machines that also have a base plate that is very similar exactly the same thickness as this one. And then you're going to put your paper and die and embossing folder on it, and then you're going to put the specialty plate right on top and run it through just like that, and that's how you're going to do it with every single one of these when you use the hybrid embossing folder. So again, for the hybrid embossing folder, this big die fits inside it. So I'm going to take that big die and you're just going to line it up on the what would be the top of the embossing folder, so the piece that's got the Stampin' Up! Logo on it, and you're just going to slide it around in your embossing folder until it kind of, like I said, it doesn't really like click into place, but you'll know when it's in place because you can't move it around anymore and everything is going to be lined up in here. So then I'm going to take Granny Apple Green cardstock, and I'm going to make sure that I have the leaf that is on, hold on, let me close this up. On this side of it is completely going to be cut from the Granny Apple Green cardstock. So I want to make sure that I've got everything placed. So this entire leaf is green, so I'm good to go on that. So I'm going to go run this through the die cutting machine. And again, with the hybrid embossing folders, they are typically the wider ones, so they're that's the width of the plate. So just be really careful when you're running it through to make sure that you've got it lined up and there isn't embossing folder hanging off of either side, because again, your machine will just very nicely take that embossing folder and mash the edge of it. Again, ask me how I know, because I've done it. So. What comes out the other side when you use the hybrid embossing folder is a beautifully die cut leaf that is all embossed already. So that is one of the nice things about the hybrid embossing folders, is it cuts and embosses at the same time. So I'm going to take all these little spare leaves, chunks, get those out of the way. And then we're going to grab Lemon Lime Twist, and we're going to do the same thing with the hybrid embossing folder. So we're going to line it back up here, and then we're going to take the little piece of Lemon Lime Twist cardstock and we're going to close it up, make sure that the entire leaf, like I just didn't do there, entire leaf is going to be cut. And you can see it from the top as well. So I'm going to go run this through the die cutting machine. And then we've got another little leaf that is all nicely embossed and die cut for us. All right, let me get this mess out of the way. You can stamp and cut and emboss the leaves. I didn't do it on this card, but that's definitely something that I'm going to play around with in the future, because I know that you can stamp them and then do the same process where you're going to die cut them out individually, and it'll cut and emboss them. So. Hey, thanks for hopping in, Dolores. So glad you made it too. All right, so I've got a couple of leaves here, and then I'm going to grab my Granny Apple Green ink first, and I'm going to apply Granny Apple Green ink very illogically to the Lemon Lime Twist leaf. And the reason that I did that is I had put Lemon Lime Twist ink on the little die cut leaf initially, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me. So there wasn't really any contrast in it, and I wanted a little more contrast. So that was why I picked kind of the next darker color in the colors that I was using to add a little bit of color with a blending brush to my die cut leaf. And the reason that I wanted a little bit of color and contrast was just to make it stand out just a little bit more, the embossing on it. So that was what I was going for. Hopefully you can see that as I hold it up here, that there's a little more contrast with the embossing. You can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to close up this ink pad, and then I'm going to do the same thing, only with garden green ink on my Granny Apple Green. So I went again with the next shade darker ink on my embossed embossed set of leaves here. So just adding a little bit, and you can put as much if you want a little more contrast, a little darker. You can add a lot more ink. I didn't necessarily want it to be super dark. I just wanted a little more contrast. So I didn't add a ton of extra ink, just kind of went over it, brushed over everything. And there we go. So again, that was garden green ink that I used to ink the granny apple green die cut. All right, we're almost ready. I did these ahead of time. These are cut from copper, from the textured metallic specialty paper is what that's called. It's a metallic paper that is in 3 different colors. There's copper, a dark silver that's called tungsten or something like that, and then gold. And I picked the copper because, I don't know, I like copper with the leaves and the paper. If you prefer the gold or the darker silver one, you can certainly use any of those. So then I grabbed my largest leaf and started with that one to make my little leaf collage. And I've got mini glue dots that we're going to be sticking everything together with here. So I'm going to take my larger leaf and just put a couple little mini glue dots here and there. I'm going to try to kind of keep them a little bit closer to the center of the leaves, just because I'm going to be tucking other leaves kind of around them. So I want to make sure that I have don't have to chop everything up and, you know, maneuver it around a whole bunch. I may have to do a little chopping, we'll see. But I'm just going to go ahead and put that here and kind of gently set it down for now. I'm trying not to smash it down and have it be stuck solidly. When I'm doing my little collages, I usually try to not smash it down completely before I have everything in place, just so that I can easily pull it up and move it around if I need to. So I've got about 3 little glue dots here on the back of my lemon lime twist little leaf, and I'm tucking it in here underneath my larger leaf. And then I'm going to take my stamped granny apple green leaf, and we're going to tuck that one in underneath the upper right section of the larger leaf. And we'll just slide that run right in here. And the main thing that I was trying to do is hide the stems of them a little bit. And I don't know that it really matters, but I didn't like the look of the stems very much, kind of poking out from everything. So that was why I tried to layer it so that I covered up most of the stems. They're not all covered, but and again, if you don't mind or like the way the stems look, you certainly can use those or put them in however so that the stems are showing. So, whoop, yeah, that one's stuck on there. Okay. Then we're going to take this one and layer it kind of down here. I think maybe we'll just go like that with it. Oh, I stuck that to my finger. I was trying to figure out why that didn't appear to be very sticky, because the glue dot ended up on the back of my fingernail and not on the back of the leaf where it should have been. There we go. And then I'll take my final little leaf and I will stick that down near the bottom on the right-hand side. So it's an awesome little bundle, actually. I love the whole thing. So I love that embossing folder. I love the leaves. Yeah, I love it all. So there we go. Got the leaves generally arranged where I want them to be. Now I'm going to take my little copper die cuts and do the same thing with those. Put some little glue dots here on the back of them. And just tuck them in and around my, stick the glue dot to my finger and not to the back of it where I want it to be. Then I'm just going to tuck those in and around my other die cuts. And I can probably smoosh that down because I know that those are where I want them to be. Take the next little piece of copper foil that's been die cut, and I'm going to tuck that one right up underneath here. Underneath one leaf, over the top of the other, if that makes sense. And then the final one is going to go over here on my left-hand side. Again, just going to take the little glue dot and put that in here. I know some of you love to use liquid glue on these types of projects. I don't love liquid glue in general, but I really don't love it when I do these kinds of things, because I usually end up with liquid glue stuck all over me and not anything stuck to the card front. So that is why I use the glue dots. And the glue dots are fairly repositionable once you really smush them down, and if they sit for a while, they're a little harder to get up. But usually with a glue dot, if I stick something down and I don't love the placement of it, I can take a hold of it and kind of pull it to the side, and the glue dots will release. Where if I have stuck it down with liquid glue, there's usually no getting it back up, and it's stuck down forever that way. So glue dots give me a little more leeway. So, all right, now I've got a piece of just the very end of my linen thread. Can you tell I use this stuff all the time? Thankfully, I have like 5 more of them. But I'm going to tie a little bow from linen thread. And going to try to make it so that it's sort of even. And I want it to be a little larger, but not a huge bow. So I think that will do the trick. And I'm just going to snip it off. And then we're going to stick that as well to the card front with a glue dot. And I know it's going to look really yucky for a second, but we're going to put our sentiment right over the top of it. So I promise nobody is going to know but you and me that there's a yucky glue dot sticking underneath the sentiment. So, all right. There we go. I'm going to set that aside while I grab a piece of basic white cardstock. And I guess I forgot my cutting plates, but I did remember the basic white cardstock today, so I don't know which is worse. All right, I've got Versamark ink and copper embossing powder from the Metallics Wow embossing powders. And I will say, yay, the embossing powders are finally in stock. If you've been waiting to order them, they are both the metallics and the basics are available now. The metallics have silver, copper, and gold, and basics is white, clear, and black. So, all right, I've got the copper embossing powder here. And we're just going to sprinkle that over the top of my sentiment. Looks like it got stuck on there pretty well, so then we're going to grab the heat tool and do a little embossing. So the Stampin' Up! Heat tool's got 2 settings on it. There's a level 1 setting for drying, so if you want to do some watercoloring or something like that and you want to speed up the drying, or you just have a particular ink that is a little bit slow to dry, you can use the level 1 setting, and that's more like a hairdryer kind of heat to it, but it'll speed up the drying process a little bit. And then there's the level 2 setting, and that is the heat embossing setting, so that's the one we're using right now. And it gets a little hotter and definitely will burn your little fingers if you get them anywhere near, so make sure you don't. And I'm just pointing it over here and letting the heat tool heat up a little bit before I turn it towards my project. And then blow my little pieces of dimensional covers all over the place. So on the heat tool, you want to definitely keep it moving. Once you've got it embossed, it'll turn shiny and smooth. And you want to keep it moving a little bit so that you don't end up burning your embossing powder, because you can do that. All right, and it's all done, all shiny. Going to give it just a second to cool. So waving it around a little bit, because if you go straight to die cut it or do anything with it, you can smear your embossing powder, and I know you don't want to do that either. Let me put these dies back here before I lose track of everything. This die set is pretty awesome because it's got a bunch of sentiment dies, and this one in particular fits around this sentiment, so I'm going to go die cut that. I'll be right back. And if only you could see the little side table I have here with all my die cutting on it. There's just paper and stuff everywhere. It looks like I had a little explosion over here because there's all kinds of little chunks of everything everywhere. So, all right, so there's our little die cut sentiment. And we're going to grab some Stampin' Dimensionals to put that on the card front. And I'm going to try to be careful where I put my dimensionals. I want them to be on the far right and far left because I've got the little bump here in the center where I've tied my knot, and I want to make sure I don't end up with a dimensional stuck underneath there. So we'll do that for now, and I can always tuck in another dimensional if I feel like I need one. All right, and then I'm going to make sure that the ends of my linen thread are not stuck underneath my sentiment, and it's sort of in the spot where I want it to be. And I think that looks pretty reasonable, and we're just going to smush it down like that. And then the final thing on the card front is I've got a couple of the neutrals adhesive back sequins. And again, these come in, I think that's called, I don't know whether it's bronze or brown or whatever that is. I think these are white. And then we've got gold and copper, so I grabbed the gold one, or the gold, the copper, a couple of the copper little sequins that we're going to put here on the card front. Just put it around however you like it to look around your leaf images. I think we will do that and call it good. And then we're going to stamp the inside, and we're going to be all done for today. So, all right, got basic white for the inside. And let me grab a couple of my ink pads and leaf images. So this is that smaller leaf, and again, my lemon lime twist ink. And we're just going to ink that up, and we're going to stamp the one leaf up here in the upper left. And then I'm going to grab the kind of medium-sized leaf and granny apple green, and we're going to stamp that one in the lower right. And we're going to be all done with the card. So all the cardstock cuts and the instructions and the PDF tutorial and all that good stuff will be posted on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com. I will link directly to the blog post once it goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, so you can come back and take a look at the video and find a link over to the blog post with all the information. So I'm going to use a little Stampin' seal to adhere this to the inside of the card base. And just try to get it generally lined up in the center. There we go. So that's the inside, pretty quick and easy. And then I'm going to grab the bone folder and give it a quick crease here along the edge so that it lays down nice and flat. And that's it. So there we go. Again, this stamp set bundle is called Changing Leaves. It's one of the new upcoming online exclusives. It's available now for demonstrators to pre-order. Customers will be able to order it starting on July 3rd, so definitely get your hands on it when you can because it's a great bundle. And I can't wait to make some fall leaves with it, but I thought it was kind of a little better since we're still pretty much just getting started into summer here in the U.S. Figured it was nice to do something with a little bit of green on it. So it is a great bundle. Definitely get your hands on it when you can. I love it. Let me know if you have questions about anything. Just haven't had time to play with it yet. It's a good one, Barbara. You're going to have fun. So thanks, everybody, for hopping in and joining today. Just as a reminder, I will not be live on Tuesday. That is the day we're doing the graduation party for my daughter. She's graduating from high school next week, Monday. So then Tuesday's our little party. So I will plan to be back around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Friday, with another video. And then it'll be the following Tuesday. So, I don't know, 10 days or whatever it is when I'll be back again on Tuesday. So we will chat with you all soon. Thanks for joining. Again, look for all the details for this card project on my blog tomorrow. See y'all later.